of you. Myself, Savita Mali, lecturer from Adarsh Institute of Pharmacy, D Farm, Vita. Present here a presentation on topic number 4 in the subject Drugstore and Business Management. Name of topic is Drug House Management. After completion of the D Farm course, most of students wants to open the drugstore. So this topic gives a lot of information to this to DPharm students how to open the drugstore and which documentation or legal aspects are related to drugstore. So first we see the learning outcomes of this topic. First, after completion of this topic, learners apply the knowledge for opening the new drugstore. Whatever knowledge gained by student by this topic, they can be used to open the new drugstore. Then second one, they can understand the importance and objectives of the purchasing. Next one, they analyze the supplier. Then next, they you can evaluate the various types of tenders and contracts. Next, they can create various methods of codification and pricing of the items. And lastly, after completion of this topic, students can design layout of the drugstore. So we see the content of the topic. First one, selection of site. Then next one, legal requirement to start and renewal of license for the drugstore. Then next one, purchasing procedure. Then how the suppliers can be selected. Then types of tender, contracts, various methods of codification and pricing of items, and lastly design the layout of the drugstore. Then this is question for you: what is basic qualification to run the drugstore, which legal documents required for it? So pause the video, think it and start the video. I think you write something in your notebook. So let's start the presentation on this topic, drug house management. After completion of DPharm course, student wants to open a drugstore. Drugstore can be opened in rural area as well as urban area. In rural area or small town, while opening the drugstore, we require a limited finance, and in that small cases we can open the drugstore in main market or mostly near the physician. Sometimes we require to provide credit facility to the customer or the patient, because in rural area earning capacity of the people is low, so they doesn't fulfill their wants in their limited financial resources. So to maintain the sale of goods or the drugs, owner of the drugstore in small town required to provide credit facility to the people. So to open the drugstore in urban area or big cities, some points can we consider, like requirement of lot of finance. To open the drugstore into big cities, there is a lot of finance is required, because there were lot of investment is required to purchase the places for drugstore or to take it in on rent. Then in big areas, while opening the drugstore, nature of people residing that area required to be considered. Then in urban area there are lot of consumers, so big investment is required to start the drugstore in big cities or urban areas. Then while opening the drugstore into urban areas or big cities, buying capacity of people are required to be considered. So these are the various points considered while opening the drugstore into the rural areas or the urban areas. In some cases, location of drugstore is to be selected near the industrial town, The financial stability of the customer should require to be studied. Drugstore also can be opened on a highway or close to the rural area like petrol pump, railway station or bus station. These are also ideal places to open the drugstore. So while opening the drugstore, we are required to select the site. And while selection of the site for the drugstore, we are required to consider various points. These are some following points are required to be considered while selection of the site for a drugstore. First one, availability of finance. To open the drugstore, first we require to consider our financial availability. To open the drugstore into the urban areas, all developed areas, a lot of investment is required. So, to open the drugstore in village side or small town, uh, small amount of capital is required. So as per availability of our finance, we can open our drugstore into big city or small town. Then next one, business locality. It is preferred to open the drugstore into the business localities like where lot of bazaars or banks or other marketplaces are available. But here large amount of capital is required because here rent are large as compared to other places. So, while opening the drugstore into business locality, we required huge finance capacity. Then we also open our drugstore into thickly populated residential area. Such type of area is always preferable since lot of people is reside at that area and they require medicine during their evening walk, or they can purchase their required medicine during their evening walk. So thickly populated area is also suitable to open a drugstore. Then we can also open our drugstore into developing areas. Nowadays in big cities there were many areas are developed. So number of people are residing at that places, so we can open our drugstore in that area also. Then next one, hospitals. If hospital or nursing houses does not have its own drugstore facility, we can open our drugstore near the hospital. Then next one, flow of traffic. Avoid the location near the traffic signals because a shop in the traffic signal has required to face parking problems. So avoid the opening of drugstore near the traffic signal. Most of people buy their goods after um, completion of their work and when they return to their home. So um, while opening the drugstore, such points should require to be considered. Then next one, parking area. While opening the drugstore, we are required to arrange a sufficient parking area. Mostly in crowded cities or crowded areas, we are we are have must parking facilities of own. Then next, availability of other drugstore in our area. While opening the drugstore, new drugstore, existing drugstore in that area required to be considered. However, if sell is sell is potential uh, at that area, we can open such our drugstore in that area also. Then next one, near the hotel, school, cinema halls or playground. While opening the drugstore near the hotel, schools, cinema halls, playground, we are required we are consider that these places are not residential places. So here sale of drug is not as much. And while opening the drugstore into the hotel side or restaurant side, sometime due to the fumes or uncleanliness or into the hotel area, our drug may be contaminated or deteriorated. And sometime we can open our drugstore near the cinema halls when we require when we sell ice creams, cold cream, etc. in our drugstore. Among that, some another point is also required to be considered while opening the drugstore into big cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, etc. While opening the drugstore into these big cities, we are required to consider mode of transport. Then second, surrounding areas. There should not be congestion of traffic. Then also we require to consider essential services like bank, post office, availability of warehouses, and we are also required to comply the rules and regulation of municipal corporation or local authority. So these are various points required to consider while opening the drugstore into the various location. Then next point is acquisition of premises. After considering or selecting the proper place for opening the drugstore, we are required to take the acquisition of that premises. Uh, the required premises for our drugstore, we can uh, taken them by rent or on lease for a certain period or directly purchased. The rent amount varies according to the building condition and locality. In big cities, there is a shortage of space, or space of premises. So, taken on rent and always required to pay heavy premium. Similarly, cost of places in commercial center, shopping market, developing area is always very high. If the premises is taken on rent basis, legal written agreement about the rent, period of rent, actual uses of shop are required to return into the with signed agreement, and such agreement required to register in the government office. And if we are taken that places on lease, their renewal should be required. And if desirable, before the pharmacist occupies a place, he can observe the following point, like he can note down the date of occupancy. Then he also consider when we he required to pay the installment, and after that he can repair their premises, like make the various furnitures, etc. And he required to comply the various rules and regulations of local bodies or local municipal corporation, etc. So by this way, or by taking rent or lease or direct purchasing, we can acquire the premises. Then next one, objectives of layout of the drugstore. While opening the new drugstore, we are required to provide various document or legal aspects to the Food and Drug Office. So, in that, main important things is to submit the layout of the drugstore, and proper designing of this layout of the drugstore is important, because main aim of designing of layout is to provide satisfaction and convenience to the consumer or owner itself. It is possible by proper layout designing of the drugstore. There are various objectives to of layout designing. First one, to attract a large number of consumer. Due to proper layout, we can attract a lot of consumers. Then second one, to increase the sale of stores. Due to attractiveness of our drugstore, number of consumer visit our drugstore, so automatically there is increase in sale. Then next one, to reduce the selling expenses. Due to proper layout, selling expenses are reduced. Then next one, to provide consumer satisfaction. If there is a proper layout, consumer can easily identify their required product and consumer get satisfaction. Then next, to project a professional image and improve the general appearance. Proper layout designing is essential to maintain our a professional image as a pharmacy and improve our general appearance. It also minimizes the movement of customer within the premises, so customer can easily purchase their goods. Then it reduces the chances of pilferage or theft. It also in designing of the layout, there is a proper space is required for reserve stock for or official work or resting places for the employees, and there is have proper entrance for incoming goods. And by considering all these points, we can design our proper layout. So these are the various objectives of layout of the drugstore. Of, by considering this point, we can draw our proper layout. This is the layout of the retail drugstore. Here minimum 10 square feet area is required to start the drugstore in wholesale as well as retail, but for combination of both wholesale and retail, there is a requirement of 15 square meter area. In this drugstore, there is a proper arrangement for window display, waiting area, entrance of incoming goods, racks for storage of various goods, or to store the goods which require temperature between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, require a freezer, and there is a proper furnitures for various staffs or the patients is required. So we here consider various points regarding layout of the drugstore. Your drugstore generally located at the ground floor because um, customers visiting to your drugstore are mostly patients. They have some diseases, so they cannot travel for long distance. So your drugstore required to be located at the ground floor. Then it should be constructed with the cement concrete walls. These walls are smooth, tiled, or washable. Then there are requirement of drawers for storing the various strips. There is also requirement of refrigerator for store the goods which are required to be stored for 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. There next it consists of various racks or cupboards having glass doors to avoid the dust particles, and due to dust particles drugs may be damaged, so there is a requirement of racks and cupboards. Then here also required necessary furnitures for staffs and customers also. It includes chairs, tables, etc. Then this drugstore is separate from our private use area. There is a no common entrance for private use and drugstore. Then floor of this drugstore should be washable. We can easily wash them daily or regularly. Then walls should be plastered and washable. Here adequate lighting is required because due to adequate lighting, consumer get cheerful and make them fresh. So our layout must be comply the various requirement as per Schedule N of the Drug and Cosmetic Act 1945. Schedule N of Drug and Cosmetic Act 1945 mention various requirement to start the pharmacy or the drugstore. Sometime we can use neon light to make attractiveness of our drugstore. Such neon light may be used at the front of the drugstore. Then we can mention our stigma of pharmacy at the entrance. Due to that, our drugstore can be easily identified from long distance, and area required for that our drugstore is 10 square meter, and for wholesale or retail both require 15 square meter area. So these are various points considered while designing the layout. Then there are various legal aspects are required to start the drugstore. First one, minimum qualification. To start or open the drugstore, there is a minimum qualification is a registered pharmacist, and registered pharmacist means a person who can be registered mm, as per Indian as per registration act, or he can be registered at the Maharashtra State Pharmacy Council, or as per rules and regulation of Pharmacy Council of India. And for that, Pharmacy Council of India mention minimum qualification as registered pharmacist is D Farm, and also B Farm, M Farm can also um, register as per Pharmacy Council of India. And so this registered pharmacist is minimum qualification to start the drugstore. And for wholesale, um, a matriculate with 4-year experience can also open their drugstore, or if he is graduate and with 1 year experience in drugstore, he can open the wholesale drugstore. Then minimum space required to wholesale or retail is 10 square meter, and for combination of both require 15 square meter area to start the drugstore. In a drugstore, we are required sufficient arrangement like a rack doors, glass doors, etc. for storage of drug and pharmaceutical. And for storage of drugs between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, we require the refrigerator. Then next one, documents required to open the drugstore. There are various documents are required to open a new drugstore. First one, we require a license, uh, and to get the license or new license, we can apply as for form number 19 of the DNC Act 1945. This form number 19 we can require to fill in duplicate, because one is for CNC1 drug and one is for other than CNC1 drug. And as per this form number 19, we can apply for our new license, and there is a fee requirement is 1500 per license, and we apply for 2 license, so here total 3000 rupees fees is required to open or get new license. And these are required to pay to government officers or government places where we can deposit them, or it can be deposited into State Bank of India or government treasury. Then we are required a attested copy of diploma in pharmacy certificate from institute. After completion of your DPharm course, we get a certificate as you completed diploma in pharmacy. Such certificate with their attested copy is required to open the drugstore. Then we also require a attested copy of registered pharmacist. After completion of DPharm course, we can register in various state pharmacy council, and they get a certificate. Such certificate with their attested copy is required to open the drugstore. Then we require a matriculate certificate. Each and every places, the basic thing we require is our matriculate certificate. So to get the new license, we also required the matriculate certificate. Then also we require affidavit from a qualified person in case he is employed. If you are employed in any drugstore, you are required to have affidavit from a qualified person that you can handle the drugstore. Then if you start your drugstore in partnership, then you here required affidavit from various from your partners, or here required partnership deed. Then we require layout. Proper layout is required to open the new drugstore. Then we also require rent certificate and a refrigerator receipt. So these are various documents required to open the drugstore or new drugstore. Then there are some also other documents are required to renewal of the retail drugstore. When you get a license, It can be valid up to 31st December of the year of the following year in which it is granted or granted. So after that we are required to renew them, and for renewal of your license we are also required to apply them as per form number 19 of Drug and Cosmetic Act in duplicate, for one for biological product and one for non-biological product. And as previous, here we require 1500 rupees fees per license. Here we have two license, so we require fees 3000 rupees. And if we cannot renew our license timely, then there is a late fee 500 rupees per license or as or part thereof. Then here we require original license if our first renewal, and if it is our subsequent renewal we require last renewal certificate. Then if you started the drugstore in the form of partnership firm, here affidavit of partner on non-judicial stamp paper is required. So for renewal of license we require to apply in duplicate by form number 19 of DNC Act 1945, and we require to pay fees 1500 per license. And if you cannot renew your license timely, you require to pay 500 rupees per month. And here we require our original license if first it is your first renewal, and for subsequent renewal require latest renewal certificate. Then same for document required to wholesale drugstore. As previous, to open the drugstore in wholesale we require same document, but here only changes into experience certificate. For wholesale, to open the drugstore in wholesale we can open our drugstore with matriculate and 4-year experience, or the if you are graduate and 1 year experience in drugstore, such person can also open the drugstore. Otherwise all the document required to um, retail drugstore is also required as to open the wholesale drugstore, like application in duplicate form, fees 1500 rupees per license, diploma certificate, registered pharmacist certificate, non matriculate certificate, affidavit from qualified person, affidavit for partnership, layout, rent certificate, and refrigerant receipt. Then there are same document required for renewal of the wholesale license, like application in duplicate, fees 1500 rupees for each license, late fees 500 rupees per month, original license for first renewal, and for subsequent renewal last renewal certificate, and affidavit on stamp paper for partnership firm. All the document required to open the drugstore in wholesale and retail are same, as well as document required for renewal of the wholesale and retail are same. And such license you get can be required to renew after 31st December, or it may be valid up to 31st December. There are various separate license are available for retail sale, like license for Schedule C and C1 drug, for Schedule X drug, and all the drugs other than Schedule C and C1 and X drug. So here we require license for C and C1 drug and other than C and C1 drug, but license for X drug cannot be given, or Schedule X drug cannot be sold without the prescription of the registered medical practitioner. So here we see the different forms and license. According to form number 19 we can apply for grant a license for both retail as well as wholesale. To open the drugstore in retail or wholesale we are required to apply by form number 19, and form according to form number 20 we get license to sell the C and C1 drugs for retail, and for from according to form number 20A we get a license to sell drugs other than C and C1 drug for restricted license, and form according to form number 20B we get license to sell the drugs other than C and C1 for wholesale. Then according to form number 21 we get a license for sale of C and C1 drug in retail form. Then according to form number 21B for sale of schedule C and C1 drugs in wholesale. So these are various form, their purpose and types of license we get. For that details you can use your textbook, and in that textbook there are various appendix which mention this various form number, and for detail we can use our your textbook to see these all forms in detail. So this is a presentation on drug house management. Remaining part of this topic I can share in my next video. So thank you for this presentation.